What's going on, everybody? The original Mako, and we have a fun one for you today. But first, be sure to check those links in the description as always. Twitch channel down there if you want to catch me do some runs live. We are close-ish, within 10 average viewers of having a chance to apply to be a Twitch partner. Any support, I would really appreciate it. It would be amazing. The live runs are really fun, and we have a lot of fun over there, so check it out. And then the second channel, there's a Pokemon Shining Pearl Nuzlocke going on. Clips channel for shorts. Discord if you want to hang out with the community and talk about whatever, pretty much. And then make sure you're subbed to this channel as well. Plenty more Gunfire content coming straight to your faces all the time. Hit the sub button. Check those links in the description. And let's get into today's video, which is... Why is that? Oh, man, see... My mods, man, my mods. They're great on Twitch, they are, but... Like, you gotta take the video off. Anyway, today we're gonna be talking about the best builds for each character in Reincarnation 8. And I'm actually gonna turn this on. Just you can have something in the background here. We're gonna go in order for characters, although it doesn't really make a difference. Starting with our good friend the cat. Now, in my opinion, if your goal is to just beat Reincarnation 8, you know, you don't want to... Your goal is just beat it as simply as possible, or pretty much any difficulty for that matter. I think the cat is your best choice. Cat's a little slow, okay, but what the cat does have are these. Specifically these two, but all of these elemental synergies along with Hex Smoke. Elemental damage is one of the best things in the entirety of the game, and a character that can just boost elemental damage to obscene levels and comes built in with damage reduction as well as like something that makes you do even more damage to these enemies. Like if you have Pyro Dominance, you're using a fire weapon, you have Elemental Rage, and you have Hex Smoke, you're doing so much damage to each enemy, and you're applying elemental effects because you always have the toxic grenades that do decay damage, as well as having the fire weapons that do the fire damage, so you get the explosions. You could go Miasma. Just elemental builds in this game are S tier, always will be S tier, and it might take you a second to just kind of get used to it, but clearing runs with elemental synergies is just elite. Also, we're going to be talking a little bit about remnants, so I'm going to have this ready to be pulled up at all times here. But there is a really good remnant you want, Elemental Maestro. So you gain a buff for 4 seconds every 10 seconds, grants plus 100% elemental damage, so another boost to elemental damage, and it guarantees the elemental effects with that buff. So, I mean, there are just no downsides there. There's just no downsides. 40% of your run, you are guaranteed to be doing elemental damage. No matter what the proc chance on your weapon is, it's guaranteed. And obviously, all of these buffs to spike elemental damage. Not to mention, there are some scrolls in the game as well that can help you out. There's obviously one of the new ones, Elemental Magazine, just an additional 50% damage. You've got the 3 rings. If you're missing an elemental type, you can get some more there. There's obviously Elemental Weave. Like, there's the shards, if you want to do even more damage with the shards. Like, there are just so many good things for elemental damage, and it is the best thing in the game. If you want me to be more specific, for clearing rooms, Corrosion and Lightning for Miasma is the best for clearing normal enemies. If you're fighting elites or bosses, Explosions is the best for that. And then Fire, I mean, Manipulation is very, very good. It obviously doesn't do any extra damage, but it prevents you from taking damage. So if you want to try to go more defensive, then you want to be using Fire plus Lightning to give you some more less likely to get hit type of thing. So I still think, though, going for... You know, you have corrosion damage built into the cat on the kit. Find a good lightning weapon, find a good fire weapon. You got all 3 elemental types. Bada bing, bada boom. You're good to go. So yeah, that's the one for the cat for Reincarnation 8 I would pick. I think that is easily the best synergy on the cat, best build to try to beat any difficulty, but especially Reincarnation 8. Next up, we have our good friend, the dog. This one is probably going to be pretty simple to see as well. But for the dog, I really do believe it's explosions, and more specifically, explosions with the new explosive weapon, the mortar. I think having 2 mortars is very viable. I think it'll really help you pass the DPS check at the end of Reincarnation 8. Obviously, you can't use the right click of the weapon, so you have to be really close range. So I don't think like building a ton of dual wield is necessary, because you kind of don't want to. You want to use dual wield more sparingly. You want to use it in certain situations when you know you're going to be close to enemies and you don't need the extra range from the right click. That being said, obviously we have explosion enhancement to up AoE and explosive damage. Mad Bomber, up explosive damage. This one can scale really well with a lot of enemies. And then we've got precise explosion to increase explosive damage. What's this? Oh, sustained fire. What does it do? It increases explosive damage. Ember eruption. I mean, there are so many things to buff the damage of the mortar on this character. And for those of you that don't know this is a very, very important thing to understand. Why it works this way, I'm not sure. But explosions are considered a skill. Okay? Explosions are considered a skill. So that means anything that buffs skill damage, Vindictive Nature, Sucker Punch, Enduring Caster, the hundreds of things in this game that can help you increase your skill damage, buffs like all of your damage coming from the mortar, because it's all explosions. Considering how many ways there are to buff skill damage and how many ways there are to just buff explosive damage or your weapons damage in general on the dog, double mortar build on the dog with a little bit of luck on your ascensions and scrolls, you are easy life. You're getting through that run pretty easily, as long as you know how to use your long range, use your ranged version of the mortar to its best potential, highest potential. But I mean, the dog just eats up explosive damage. So once again, double mortar on the dog, get those explosions going, get as much skill damage as you can, because like I said, skill damage will buff pretty much every shot because it's considered an explosion, and skill damage buffs explosions. It works. Don't ask me why, but it does. So that's it for the dog explosives. So far we've got cat elemental, dog explosions, specifically with the mortar. And then next up we have the birds. Now this one's a little more interesting because the birds you got to be a little bit luckier to get this one, but I do think it is the best build on the birds. There is no doubt about it, and it is leap, a leap build on the bird. So obviously you're going to want to be looking for last breath, gigantic explosions. Those are the 2 biggest ones you want, because those are really the only things that can help your leap damage, as well as close combat, because whenever you're hitting an enemy with your leap, you're probably going to be within 7 meters. So those 3 are the big ones that you want to look for. But the biggest thing you need to get this rolling is our good friend Unstoppable Momentum. So plus 100% base damage for the next leap when you hit an enemy with leap. You can have up to 10 stacks. If you ever miss, you remove all of the stacks. So every time you hit an enemy, you get a stack. With your leap, you get a stack. You don't ever lose these stacks unless you miss with your leap. Obviously, like it says, you can have up to 10 stacks. That's plus 1,000% base damage on your leap. I mean, that right away is going to be clearing enemies, even on Reincarnation 8, if you have 10 stacks. Like, that's going to get them very low, if not kill them. And then, obviously, with a little bit of help from Last Breath, a little bit of help from Gigantic Explosion. I mean, if you get Last Breath maxed, that's 1,600% leap damage, and you're getting cooldowns whenever you kill an enemy. Obviously, the leap is a primary skill, so skill damage buffs this as well. You get a little bit of skill damage. You get you got to get a lot of luck with these ascensions, but you start with that remnant, get that stuff going. You could even get another good one to look for is Oppressor. When your current health is greater than or equal to that of an enemy, you do additional damage. If not, you take less damage, but obviously doing additional damage is pretty important to finish those enemies off. So, yeah, I think the Bird Elite build is your best option for clearing, because outside of that, Bird's damage does not scale very well. Cleave build is a pain in the ass to get going. He doesn't really have too many things. Godly. He doesn't really have too many things that help weapons. Like help buff weapon damage a lot. So I think that's the best build on the Bird for Reincarnation 8. Not for every difficulty, but specifically for Reincarnation 8, I do think that that is the best way to go. You could even try to do something like All or Nothing and get some, maybe try to find Paranormality, get some armor going, but focus on the leap and trying to buff that skill damage to new levels on the Bird. So that's what I think the best one is on the Bird. Next up, we're going on to our good friend Z Taiga, who I play the least amount of. So this one was a little bit harder for me to really comment on because of how little. Like if we look, I'm kind of curious here. So on the dog, 503, cat 350, bird 783, bunny 167. Even the new character already at 22. 139. That's it. Ever with this character. And he's been out a lot longer than the bunny. And we already have more time on the bunny, and we already have 22 on the new character. So the tiger, we don't play a lot. That being said, I'm still going to give my take because I do think I have some sort of opinion on this. So the main thing for the tiger, I think, is starting with the lightning messenger remnant here. So after dealing a crit hit, you apply lightning effect to the inflicted enemy and all foes within 10 meters. When the tiger attacks the enemy in shock effect, you increase weapon damage and skill damage by 100%. So every enemy that is shocked, you deal increased damage to and increased skill damage. And this applies an AoE shock every time you crit. Every single time you're hitting a crit, it applies this AoE shock. And you can kind of take that a couple of different ways. I mean, you could go like chain lightning to have your lightning do more damage, but I think a big hitter weapon is what you're going to want here. So, something such as, the best ones, I want to try it with Ice Spear. I haven't quite gotten a good run with that yet, but Shrieker could be a really good one to do. Piercing Flame, Double Cow, Strike Wing, those would be the ones I would use. For those of you that enjoy pain and suffering, Bloody Drill. I know a lot of people do like the Bloody Drill. I don't. Any of those big hitting sniper weapons are going to do a pretty good job at this. I mean, you're hopefully going to be critting a decent amount, going to be applying that shock damage, and if you're lucky, maybe you could find like a corrosive double cowl or something, and you can start getting that miasma stack going. In terms of ascensions, just pretty typical stuff of like magical supply you're going to want to try to keep that E up as much as possible. Stormblast damage to help you proc magical supply. Lightning from the Void is almost always a good one to take. I believe, Bolt from Blue is pretty good because while you're in your E, every shock effect triggered summons Thunderstrike on the affected enemy. So that could come in handy. Those are a few good ones that I would try to look out for. But like I said, this is probably my least confident one just because I never ever play this, or not never, but very, very rarely play this character, and especially on Reincarnation 8, I've only done him a couple of times. So that's my take. Might not be the best one, but I do think that is a really, really good build. I really do. So try it out if you want. Get back to me. So first 4 characters. We have Elemental, Explosions, Leap, Lightning Messenger. Now we get to the Bunny. And the Bunny, the very important part of the Bunny, you cannot see because I'm in the way, so I'm going to move. And overlay is not going to load, that's fine. So, Fatal Bloom, the Q. Summon petals in the front that explode outwards, marking all enemies within 6 meters and dealing 600 damage. The mark lasts for 6 seconds, and Fatal Bloom deals damage to marked enemies again every time you hit it 12 different times. That is very good. So basically, Every time you hit this enemy 12 times within 6 seconds, you're going to be doing an additional 600 damage to start with, but obviously the goal is to pump that damage to new heights. There it is again. Pump the damage to new heights. How do we do that? Well, there's an entire tree to help do that. Glowing Bloom, obviously one of the easiest ways to do it. Blade of Bloom's a good one, but not super specific for this build. But Flower Chain, making some weapons do AoE is really nice. So Glowing Bloom, Flower Chain are two you're really going to want to look out for. The big things with the bunny in helping this Q pop off is, you guessed it, remnants. For the bunny, we have Blossom Enthusiast. So like it said, every time you hit the enemy 12 times, it'll proc this damage again. If you get Blossom Enthusiast, every 4 hits will proc this, which is basically tripling the amount of damage you do instantly. If there was something in the game that said triple your damage with no drawbacks, like, you would just take that every single time. It'd be SS tier. Like, this essentially just triples the amount of damage that you can do to an enemy with Fatal Bloom, which is ridiculous. Obviously, Thorny Bloom's really good as well, but Blossom Enthusiast is the big one. And then you get to tier 3 on Glowing Bloom, -2 hits again, and then you go down to only 2 hits required, which then doubles your damage from there. You get a fast-firing weapon like an Angelic Aura, and you get a little bit of skill damage to help your Fatal Bloom out as well, because obviously this is a skill, so skill damage does apply. You are going to be hitting for stupid, just extra DPS with this Fatal Bloom, and it is one of the best DPS methods in the entirety of the game. So maybe you haven't played with the bunny, maybe you haven't messed around with the bunny yet, but if you do, focus on that Q. It might take you a few runs to really understand how it works. You might be thinking, I'm still really confused. Play with it once or twice and you'll understand exactly what happens. Those pink damage numbers are what you're looking for. That's coming straight from this ability. But yeah, I mean, the amount of damage you can get from this is mind-blowing. When I first saw this pop off in one of my runs, I was like, oh, this is what this can do. So this run is insane, and I think definitely the best build for the bunny on Reincarnation 8. No doubt in my mind. And then next, last, but certainly not least, we have our good friend, the Hedgehog. I know he's a turtle. I think he looks like a hedgehog. I'm going to call him a hedgehog, okay? So for this guy, there's a very common theme here of skill damage on pretty much everybody. The cat, it's way less important, but everybody else, very important. Anyway, for this guy, you want to just beat the fuck out of everything with your fists. The most important remnant I can talk about is Dominating Fists, because the stacks of Fist Sensation will not drop below 20, which Fist Sensation basically just means the faster you're moving, the more damage you do. It roughly translates to like meters per second, but this means you will never drop below 20. So even if you're at a dead standstill, not moving, you're dealing 100% extra damage, because for every stack, it's 5% extra damage. So, I mean, an additional 100, doubling your damage right there is pretty nice to start with. But if we get into the thick of it, obviously there's a clenched fist, which is a way to just increase the amount of damage that you do with your fists. Rogue Wave, which is additional way to gain more damage to your fists. In this red category, there's a few ways to get striking punches back. Concussive Current is a good one as well. But the biggest one in this category that works so well with that remnant I just talked about, Dominating Fist, is Wave Breaking Blow. For every 8 stacks of Fist Sensation, you will consume an additional use of Striking Punch and perform an additional punch with 40% damage, up to 4 punches at most. If any of these punches kill an enemy, you recover all of the uses. So, you just spam punches with one click of the button, one click of your Q, or whatever you have it bound to, and you just punch, 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 punch. If any of those kill, you get all of your uses back, and you can just do it again, and again, and again, And again, there's some other ones too, that like Tidal Rhythm, that gives you an additional skill damage while you have your E up. Obviously, you can only punch in your E, so more punching damage is what you're looking for. And once again, this is affected by skill damage. It starts to make sense when you sit down and think, like, oh, these are some of the best synergies and builds in the game. That's why they probably have so many things that can help you increase your skill damage. I mean, once again, we can look at these are three new ones right here. Sucker Punch, Enduring Caster, Vindictive Nature. We obviously have some of the other new ones. There's, no, not Hidden Transaction. It's Riches Privileges, which does skill damage based on copper. There's Spirit Bible. There's another really good purple one. Surprise bonus, 15% chance to double the damage for any skill. There is Skill Freak as a remnant, which just doubles skill damage again. So there are so many ways to help increase your skill damage. So any build that relies on skill damage, like explosions on the dog, punches on the hedgehog, leap on the bird, tiger, not really as much. So, but for the character Q on the bunny, it's so good and so useful. And I think if we go to my player information, this max, oh wait, okay, I was gonna say this highest total damage was a punch build on our good friend the hedgehog, where I did nothing but punch. Look, if we look at our highest total damage dealt on the dog, not under a mil. Cat, under a mil. Bird, well under a mil. Tiger, 5.5 because the tiger was broken when he came out. Bunny, almost 600,000. 1.5k from a punch. I did this amount of damage with a punch. Bop. Not a weapon. Not a broken synergy. Well, I guess it is broken, but not something like stupidly OP like the concealed ammo on the tiger was, with just a simple little punch by buffing its skill damage a little bit. So that by far I think is the best build on the new character, and it's a lot of fun to do, so I recommend doing it. But there it is, everybody. Those are what I think are the best builds on Reincarnation 8 for each of the characters. We'll go through them again. We've got elemental damage with the cat. We have explosions with the dog. We have a leap build with the bird, very much relying on a remnant. Tiger, we have lightning messenger build, which is completely 100% on a remnant. Blossom enthusiast, not reliant on a remnant, but has a very good one. So your Q, essentially, your Q build, and then punch build, another Q build, essentially, for the hedgehog. And it's kind of nice because once you figure out the bunny, like obviously it's a very different Q, but you kind of want to build your run the exact same way you would on the bunny, focusing on a lot of that Q damage. So there it is, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed. Maybe you'll try some of these out if you haven't. Maybe you'll have gotten some new ideas, or maybe not. But these are, in my opinion, the very best synergies that you can have to try to take on Reincarnation 8 with each different character. So thank you for watching. Like I said, be sure to check those links, subscribe, turn on the bell notifications so you know when these posts go live. Hopefully you all have a wonderful rest of your day. I love each and every one of your faces, and I will catch you all in the next video.